Sudha, is there anything that we have to do to switch to the general link?
Yes, ma'am.
Sudha, you or Kaushik can answer. Is there anything we need to do to switch to the general link, or do we just get started?
There is no general. We can just already five. We can start speaking.
Okay,
We'll get started, Rajni. Yeah.
yeah, okay. Good evening and welcome to Say Yes, Women for India at 75. My name is Rajni Seshadri and I'm the chairperson for CII's Indian Women Network, IWN as we call it, the Southern region. We've spent months deliberating as a steering committee and we finally reached the moment when the journey can begin. Welcome Harsha and Anita. We at CII Southern Region IWN are pleased to announce that you are our inaugural speakers for the Star Trek series. We have two learning tracks, leadership and entrepreneurship, curated, focused on learning from leaders in many fields. The exciting part is that there's always something to learn, every time. So let's all be a part of the winning way in conversation with our star couple today, Anita and Harsha Bhogle, and in association with the Better India. Anita is an alumnus of IIT Bombay and IIM Ahmedabad. She spent her early years in advertising, market research, and marketing consultancy. Prior to setting up ProSearch, she was director, account planning and research at FCB Ulka Advertising. Anita also runs BizPundits, India's first digital learning library for managers. We were very fortunate to have her with us in Kochi in January earlier this year, and her session was uh, a star session then as well. Harsha has been called the voice of Indian cricket and has covered over 100 tests, 400 one-day internationals, including 8 World Cups and 6 World T20 Championships. I should also say that when I first started listening or watching cricket, um, Harsha was one of the first commentators I heard. He's a chemical engineering graduate who studied at IIM Ahmedabad and after a brief stint in advertising, pursued a career in the media. He's been voted the most popular commentator in a global poll by Cricinfo and was for a long time the face of Star Sports. Anita and Harsha have conducted over 550 live sessions of the winning way to over 400 companies that represent the cream of corporate India. They present together and draw from their different skills to make the winning way a unique offering in its genre. Their book, with the same name, has sold over 100,000 copies and is a national bestseller. Welcome, Harsha and Anita. In conversation with them today is Hema Mani, Chairperson CII IWN Chennai, and Director HR Linux India. Over to you, Hema. Hema, you're on mute.
Sorry. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. So I was saying thank you, Rajni, and thanks, Anita and Harsha. You've been really gracious enough to patiently bear with me over the past few days as I curated the event along with you. And I really want this to be a conversational style, and really try and delve into both your journeys that you have together, and really that gives us a lot of lessons as we keep going through. And if I may just help begin the whole conversation, both of you are achievers in your own game, however, years back, and probably that did not look so easy. with you coming from B school with a comfortable job in hand. And then you took that shift to sports commentary and entrepreneurial ride through Pro Search and then Biz Pundits. Can you just deep dive into the journey and give us insights into some of your earlier fears and how you overcame them and what support mechanisms did you choose and how did you really travel that journey together?
Sure. I think start this because our journeys have been quite different, and his journey in a way decided what I could not do. So let him briefly tell you about how he pursued his passion, as everybody likes to say.
It's a very contemporary question to a very old situation because a lot of people today ask, what did you plan and how did you go about it? What were your support? And sometimes when you're ignorant or sometimes when you have very little to lose, you don't think that much. And I don't think we thought that much. Luckily, when you go to a really good school, when you come out of a really good management school, it gives you a few things when you're passing out. It gives you confidence. It gives you a certain awareness of what you're capable of. I was in advertising. I was enjoying being in advertising. So it wasn't such a big miss because you would have gone back to advertising. And I was surrounded by some lovely people. I enjoyed being in advertising. And then really one thing led to the other. But at heart, middle class, I mean, what? When we started out, our combined salary was?
Less than 5,000 rupees.
4,200. Mine was 1,900. She was 2,300. And throughout, every time my salary increased, her salary increased even more. So this was...
So we've been very unconventional in a way. He moved into my home. I'm a couple of days older than him. So
Wow.
I think we... without knowing it, we broke a lot of stereotypes.
When people said, when you got married, did you know? I said, no, I didn't know that I was marrying a girl with a flat. But it turned out like that. So I married a girl with a telephone line, a ration card, everything, So I literally moved into her.
In fact, his first boss used to say, I think you married the flat.
I was just about to ask her, what was the criteria behind choosing Anita as your partner?
Oh, she asked me and I couldn't believe why she was asking. So I said, yes. No, we were together. We were together. We knew each other. There was respect. There was trust. I think that was what mattered. When you see people on campus, you get to know each other pretty well. So you see the other side to people as well. So yeah, so for me, that was what it was. And one thing led to the other. It wasn't that there was a plan that in 3 years I'll go there, in 5 years I'll go there. So sometimes when you don't have a plan, you just enjoy the journey as it comes. So all I remember is being very excited by every little project, and there were lots of little projects. There was a lot of hard work for no revenue sometimes. And I think that is the making of people. When you're willing to work hard for no payment, that means you're enjoying doing it. And so literally one thing led to the other, but in the right place at the right time, because cricket was growing, the media was growing, India was economically liberating itself. We're all children of that liberalization of the early to mid 90s. So we literally went with the tide.
Yeah. So if you just want to reflect back on that point, when you took that deflection from being in the advertising firm, you probably came home and you just decided, hey, this is something I want to step over and become a sports commentator. What was the reaction at home? By then, you already had children, and I'm sure that weighed on your mind as well. What was the reaction, and how did you go about negotiating or influencing people around you?
It wasn't a eureka moment, Emma. If there was a biopic, it would be boring. I was already doing cricket. To be honest, that was one of the reasons. But I was doing it on All India Radio and Doordarshan. I did my first game at 19. I did my first international at 23. So it was already there in parallel. So it wasn't as if we suddenly decided, okay, from today I want to be a broadcaster. I want to be in the media now. Let me see how I'm going about it. It was always a parallel train running. All my life, I've had these 2 or 3 tracks running adjacent to each other, with a primary track being there throughout. But it was always along that. So it wasn't that you came home one day and said, I'm going to do this. And what? After 5 years, my salary was 5,000 rupees. So what were we missing? So there were 2 things, as I keep telling everybody, 2 things that made it really simple. 3 things. One is I knew I could go back to advertising. If I wanted a job, Second, we had a home in Mumbai, and you can never, ever, never, ever underplay that. It was very important. And third, I had a wife who was earning.
Yeah.
So it was perfect. Every decision that I've had to take, it's because she was doing something alongside. So that's how we could take these calls.
Yeah. So the passion was already there, but by 1993 or so, I think Star and ESPN came into the country, and then it was a viable profession. Till then, it was just a hobby, and he would do a couple of matches every year, write on the side, and things like that. But then it became a viable, a professional decision.
But you were earning with qualitative research at that time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So like you said, my kids were born and both of us were in advertising. We didn't have, I mean, we had the flat, but we didn't have family in Mumbai. And then his career took off. So remember, I married a classmate. I didn't marry a celebrity. Okay. And then, it was the right thing to do at that point in time because it was a one in a million kind of an opportunity. I knew all along that he was so passionate about it. And so we decided to take a chance. But that kind of changed our life completely because then I had no support from him as well. He used to go on long tours and now he'll go for the IPL and that'll be 2 months. 2 months straight. But of course, the boys are adults now. And so, but in those days, it was difficult. So there were many things I couldn't do because of all these things. I couldn't work long hours. I couldn't work full time. I couldn't travel too much. So, by the time he kind of decided to do that, all these things had already happened and the kids were like growing up. And that was then entirely my responsibility.
But her story, as of all of us, is a story of making the most of what you can do.
Yeah.
You accept a situation and say, this is what it is. When the children are growing up, here's a hardcore quant person, by the way. She said we broke a lot of stereotypes. The mother teaches mathematics in our house. And the mother gets the children can't understand mathematics. She's a hardcore quant person, moved to doing market research, did it all herself. Qualitative research. Often took the baby was sleeping the next room while she was doing her group discussions. It's quite a story, but always seeing what is possible. Sometimes we look at hurdles and think, oh my God, why do we have hurdles? It's always a way around them if your mind is open.
So although I became an entrepreneur in the right sense of the word, only I think 15 years into the career, I always thought like an entrepreneur because when you have so many constraints and you've got to make the best of whatever there is, then you've got to be like that, a little street smart, looking for opportunities, trying to maximize everything you have. So that was always there. And then I was in advertising and I was already head of a department. I worked 11 to 4 even then. And I was one of the early ones. So remember, we come from an era where there weren't too many work from home or flexi options. And yet I was I was very lucky to get that opportunity. But somewhere, we had 7 offices in India. How long can you tell people I can't travel? And my children were kids then. And he was already well on the way. Mm-hmm. So we decided, why don't we marry our strengths and try to do something different and something that would combine our strengths. And that's how the Winning Way really was born. So it was like a child for us. It was
what a wonderful book and wonderful sort of programs you've had. I hear a lot of echoes. So those of you who are not speaking, just kindly mute your lines. That will help us.
Hema, it looks like it.
Just Hema, sorry to interrupt Hema, but I think you probably have to just do something with your headset also. It's causing a little bit of static on the line.
Okay.
Thank
Are you still hearing it? Are you still hearing it?
No,
it's a little better now.
Okay, yeah. So that came onto my mind, Anita, is when there's a couple who are both equally aspirational and very passionate about their genre. Does it lead to one partner tending to compromise for the other because one is speeding up? It's like in a cricket when one player is playing very well and is in his right spirits that day. The other player fights on. So does that happen between both of you? And how have you handled it?
Yeah, definitely it happened to us. And he had the added advantage that he was standing on 2 very strong pillars cricket and television.
Yeah.
And that was something that made him, so visible, so known, and so loved also. Um, and that definitely is there because, in everything that I have done later, this identity of being Harsha's wife kind of, casts a shadow on everything else that you do. Uh, quite like, what Sudha Murthy does. She's Narayan Murthy's wife. That's what everybody says. But then she is a thought leader in her own right, and then she writes stories, and he's not writing them for her. But still, that identity that, oh, she's Narayan Murthy's wife, she's rich, all those things kind of overshadow everything else. So definitely, it is professionally there has been a compromise. But at the end of the day, I think we did what was right for the family. And I think we also benefited from, what he has achieved. And even professionally, definitely, I have, it's opened many doors. So I have benefited as well. But yeah, I haven't really played to my strengths in that sense.
I'll tell you what bugs us a lot, and this is for people in HR as well to understand, which is it is assumed even today, and that it's a little painful. It's assumed even today that if husband and wife are working together, that the wife is helping the husband. And I don't think even today in the workplace, even in HR companies, even with HR heads, that husband and wife can work together or that the wife can lead the business is something that people, I don't know why, still struggle. And if I tell them that, I said, listen, no, Anita's the boss. She runs this business. They'll say, oh, what a nice guy. Look how he's saying nice things about her.
Yeah.
And I think that needs to change to accept the fact that if two people are working together, husband and wife are working together, it's entirely possible and admirable if the woman's actually leading the project. And this is something that still gets to us sometimes, that still bugs us sometimes, especially the event industry, which is not very intelligently manned or woman. But it still gets it. And I think still people are struggling to come to terms with that. And maybe through this forum, we should say, at least the women should now start saying,
Yes.
that when two people are together, they're, that old line, every time we go, I mean, luckily I haven't had for a few years, behind every successful man is a woman. Say, no, it's not right. So it took a long time for that, and we're still struggling with it, to be honest.
So that way there has been a struggle, but it helped to have a partner who came without an ego, though he kind of achieved star status or whatever you'd like to call it. We trust each other, we respect each other, and we had our roles cut out. So from that point of view, I think it's been a great partnership personally. So we've never had issues. We've never let egos come in between. And he's been wholly supportive. And in the process, I think also, kind of become more of a feminist. Because when you see firsthand, I think, that changes things for you. It becomes personal. So let me tell you a little incident to kind of show you this. I started playing music at about 47. I started learning to play the keyboard. And we are a few, CXOs who in Mumbai, and we learned from the same teacher. And there was an article in Economic Times to cover that. And there were a few men who were covered, and I was the only woman. And the piece was written by a woman. And for all the men, it said, they have an IIT, IIM background and what they do. And only for me, they said I was Harsha Bhogle's wife. So that is something that, one grapples with, and I hope things will change. I'm very hopeful looking at the younger generation. Truly, they are far more equal than we were, although I think at home we were not equal.
Yeah, it's a onward journey for all of us to
Yes.
really, attain those individual identities irrespective of gender, right? And I hope through IWN we are able to create a little dent into that and, progress in the right way forward. Just coming back to passion, because that's an area that I really want to tap in, because a lot of this generation people do say, oh, I like this, I like playing this game, or I'm deeply interested in this art or craft. But is there a difference between passion, excellence, and talent? What are your thoughts around it? Because both of you have really worked and invested on your passion, but is there a difference between passion, excellence, and talent? Are these different, interrelated? What are your thoughts around it?
Yeah, I think talent is a given. Without talent, I think you're struggling. But talent can be overrated sometimes because talent can sometimes actually come in the way. Talent can give you an ego sometimes, saying, you know what, I'm talented. A lot of talented people don't work hard enough, don't are not rigorous enough. It's one of the things I learned from her. Actually, I know you're going to ask me that later. But one of the things I learned from her was rigor because I come from a very, it's okay. Come on, I grew up in Hyderabad where everything was okay. Things happen. But I learned rigor. I learned how to prepare. We do our winning way sessions today. Even today, 575 sessions down the line, she still makes me say, "What are you going to say? What are you going to say? What are you going to say on this slide? Are we ready?" Because you've got to be responsible to someone who's paying you for that. So you have a moral obligation to be prepared. So the work ethic comes in really important. But do you get a buzz with what you're doing? If you watch Tendulkar hit through covers 100 times and you still get a buzz the 101st time, you say, wow, the 101st time. That is passion. But the passion doesn't only have to be sport music. We've got a friend who's head of the lubricants business for a large company. And he was so passionate about lubricants. He would come and tell us, you know what, my company lubricant can do this and that. As he was selling engine oil. He said, yeah, but what a great company. So you must get a little buzz from a distributor. You must get a little buzz from a shot that you see, an expression that you hear. That, I think, is passion.
Yeah, a lot of people see passion as if you have a hobby or if you are good at some art. And in Harsha's case, of course, he found it early, and so then it was easy to pursue that. So a lot of things fell in place for him. But not everybody is fortunate. Either you don't really have a passion that you have recognized, or maybe you can't really pursue it. There's nothing to stop you from being passionate about whatever you do, which means that you're like totally immersed in whatever you do. You're so proud of what you are doing, and you want to push the envelope and excel in whatever you're doing. And that's something that I have tried to do because I didn't have any passion like any specific passion like he did. I dabbled in various things and gave it 100% each time. So that, according to me, is passion.
So at this point, I'll take a question from what is here on the Q&A. Looks like my earphones. Are you all getting
I
that?
think
Hema?
maybe
No.
you should take them off.
No, or maybe they're brushing against, the mic is brushing, might be brushing against your hair, Hema.
Can you just move the earphone?
Yeah. Is it better now?
It's fine for us.
Your neck
Yeah.
too.
Okay. So I'm taking a Q&A here from Vaishnavi who says, today people are spoiled for choices, leading to fatigue in decision making with respect to their career. Is that true? Wasn't it the same in the early 80s that we all had choices and we were spoiled for choice? What are your thoughts around it?
No, we didn't. I mean, I was doing chemical engineering in Hyderabad, and there was absolute prospect of getting a job in chemical engineering. Zero, absolutely no prospect. So what did you need to do? Either you did an MTech in an IIT and tried to get the stamp from there and hopefully go from there, or you hoped to get into a public sector company like a Hindustan Antibiotics, Hindustan Zinc, Hindustan Insecticide, those kind of companies, or a fertilizer company. You hope to get in there as an engineer and work your way up, but the choices did not exist. I mean, everyone says engineer banega, doctor banega, nowhere near the kind of choices that you have today. But because there are no choices or very few choices, you learn to make the most of what you have because there is not a world beyond that. When you have too many choices, you're constantly flitting between one flower to another. And so the choices are always attractive, they're always alluring. And because the choices are alluring, sometimes I get the feeling people don't give it everything they've got. When you've got no option, you have to give it everything, right? And I think we benefited to that extent because we had to give it everything we've got. It's great to have options, but you must learn to give every option everything that you've got.
Also, when you had a few companies coming to campus, and if you got a job with Hindustan Lever, as they used to call it then, Hindustan Unilever, or a Citibank, those were the dream companies. Then you felt very grateful. You felt very good about it. Today, you have employers who are chasing young people, young talent. And I find that people are just happy to throw it away, just because they're spoiled for choice. So Vaishnavi, I think, yeah, there is some truth to what she's saying, and there is confusion as well. And you find that, somebody who's an architect and doing extremely well suddenly throws it away and does psychology or something like that. And there's somebody, I don't know, only time will tell whether these things work. But few in our generation did that. And people still ask people like Harsha that, you throw it away and
All I will tell Vaishnavi is that a lot of options seem to exist. How many of these options are sustainable options? Because all options look very attractive when you look at them from a distance. Once you're in that option, is that option sustainable? Is there enough in it for you to be in that profession 15, 20 years? Everyone wants to be an RJ, for example. It's a nice profession. There's so many people doing it. How many years can you be an RJ, for example? Then are you looking at a sustainable option? And so when something looks attractive, just see if there is a career there for a lifetime as well, if it comes to that.
Speak about that, Harsha. Very often there's an element of fear, right? We all like to operate in a comfort zone, and to an extent, we like to stretch ourselves and pick up certain new skills and new traits, and we are in that learning zone. But sometimes when you want to trek into a new area, it's terrorizing. It's terrorizing and it's filled with fear. And somehow for me, I still am, at the fact where you took that decision and, you came into sports commentary, you are a huge fan. I mean, you have a huge fan base in Australia, for example. These are all newer areas for you. How did you model yourself mentally to go that journey and said, "Acha, ye bhi dekha jayega. Let me try this out." And how did you mentally make yourself up ready for that?
It's like getting onto a bike, but you don't know how far the road is. You just say, okay, I'll go on the bike for the next 100 meters, and I'll see what comes at the end of the 100 meters. So I didn't know, can I be the best in the world? Can I be the face of Indian cricket? No, I didn't know any of that. All you knew was, I've got this opportunity tomorrow. Let me make the most of it. If I give it 100%, if I try really hard, who knows, another door might open. It didn't happen till, I mean, a long-term contract really didn't materialize till the late 90s, early 2000s. So it wasn't a huge contract before that. And it became really paying only late 90s, early 2000s. Beyond that, I was being paid like a lot of freelancers are paid today on an assignment by assignment basis. In fact, when I started out, I would pay my way through. I would spend all the money myself, and whatever came from different sources, the different work that we were doing was your income. And so whatever you saved was what you earned. And I still remember this story. I was in South Africa. Faxing was expensive from South Africa to India, and I was writing it for 5 newspapers. So to fax to 5 newspapers or 6 newspapers was tough from there. And the media's house sometimes closed. If it didn't reach the newspaper, you didn't get paid for that. With a little child, she went to the office of one of our friends. South Africa game ended at 6 o'clock, so it's 9:30 already. At 10 o'clock at night, with a baby, go to a friend's office. The peon there would keep it open, take the fax that came on thermal paper, then find a Xerox store that's open to photocopy that on plain paper, come back there, send it to 4 or 5 people, and then go home. Who gets that kind of support? So to that extent, we were lucky with doing things, but we're there for each other.
Yeah, but also baby steps. I think the first tour was sponsored. So he found he used to do some work with Midday, and they kind of backed him, and so covered part of the cost. So then once you've done one tour, you kind of figured out what to do, and then you build on that. The other thing is, I think, doing many things. So he would write, and he'd do something for radio, and then of course something for television and things, and all that put together would cover his costs. So hard work again, so that all your costs are covered. So that's how it works. So you kind of maybe think that it's a big thing and taking a big risk, but it's also a calculated risk, and you build on that. Each time with this, your equity just builds. Then you
Two
can take
things
bigger
I picked
risks.
up from that story, two things. One is that both of you are playing a team sport, and that's a word of message for everybody who's listening to this. And two is just sheer hard work. And I think those are two very pertinent takeaways from that. I'm just looking at some very interesting questions, and one of it is, Anita, Looking back, would you have kept to your maiden name?
Yes, I would have. I would have.
And
I,
please go ahead.
No, in those days you thought, even the family dog has the family surname, and it would just be nice because I would be the only, I would be the odd one out, and I did consider that. It's not like the married name has not helped me. It has. Also, having an unusual name immediately kind of, people ask, are you related to Harsha Bhogle? But yeah, to keep that sense of identity now, yes, I would have liked to keep my name.
So the second question, Harsha, and this is, I think, really from a professional standpoint, can you please share with us one wow moment from your commentary? This is coming from Sandeep Shastri.
Yeah, I mean, over a long career, there'd be many, but I think the one that people remember the most, also because it was just a few years ago, was the Tendulkar retirement, and voicing the last walk around the stadium and whatever. Yeah, so I think it was a gut wrenching moment, but in professionally it was a wow moment.
People who are listening to us, you may continue typing in your questions, use the chat window and send us your questions. We are in the world of pandemic, and unfortunate 2020. Who knew 2020 would be like this, right? And back when we were students, I recollect we had to traditionally write this one essay on your vision for 2020. And I guess all of us would have written about flying cars and India being the most super developed nation and powerful nation. And what we have is all of us locked at home. But also the fortunate thing is, we can interact like this between Chennai and Mumbai and still have a wonderful chai time conversation. But really, this question is about many of us professionals today are stranded in a situation where we have to continue with our jobs working from home, right? And this is now being seen as a new thing, new trend, working from home. But Anita, just looking through your entire work profile, you've had a flexible work, you've had a flexible career, and you possibly have worked from home. You possibly carried work along with
Yes.
you when you traveled along with Russia. So, what are some tips that you would like to share with all those who are considering this as a new norm?
Well, the COVID is not, I mean, this phenomenon is not really representative of all work from home because I think we don't have too much help and that kind of changes everything. Also, I don't think productivity is really on people's minds as much as it would be if work from home kind of, yeah, came to be the norm. So it's something that people indulge in, saying work from home. Somebody's allowed work from home currently, but if it becomes the norm, then I think you need to think of a few things. And I'm telling you from experience because we've run a home office for over 20 years. It's only in the last few years that we've kind of have our own office and which is outside of home. But I think the important thing to do, to remember in work from home is that you need to be as efficient as you would be if you were at work. And so we always had this area that was demarcated. And you try and stick to a schedule. Of course, flexibility is always very attractive, but there has to be some semblance of a schedule. The other thing is, I think, investing in gadgets and things that make you efficient. Because what do you need really to set up an office? You need a laptop, you need a phone, you probably need a printer and a scanner and things like that, and that's about it. And you are like all set to go. But you need these things, and you need a good internet connection, of course. So these are the kind of things that you need to invest in. So that is something you need to do for efficiency. What you really miss for, when you're working from home is the networking. And that is very, very important. And somehow women don't seem to give it enough importance. I think you need to be very well networked. And that is something you need to make an extra effort for when you work from home.
Let me take this bit out of picture, Anita, and ask you, how did you go about networking, staying
Hima,
connected? How
Hima,
did you go about building? Yes,
Yeah.
Rajni.
Hima, if you would just pause. Anita and Harsha, may I ask you to go on mute while Hima is speaking?
Okay.
Because there seems to be some
Yeah,
delay there.
yeah.
Sure, sure. Okay.
Yeah, so the question, I want to stretch out that question for you, Anita. And this is one of the areas that women really struggle. I think for men, for various reasons, naturally networking comes in as their, it's easy for them, right? But for women, there has to be it's a cultivated skill, right? And you working from home, and also the fact that you had to really run a business and establish its name for itself. How did you cultivate that trait, and what are some tips that you'd like to offer to several of the women here who are probably in their mid careers and trying to figure out ways to do this better?
Yeah, yeah, a couple of things. One is that you've got to put yourself out there, you know, and you've got to kind of offer your services from time to time in a panel discussion, or make a presentation, because women somehow seem to take the back seat and they're happy with somebody else doing that. You've got to push yourself to do that. I've also seen that at events, women kind of stick to a chair. They don't move places. Once you go and settle down somewhere, you're there. Now, the basic principle of networking is that you try and meet different kinds of people. You'll see men will, get up and move to this corner, that corner, talk to this one, talk to that. The women will be in their seats. So that kind of behavior, you need to avoid, and you've got to meet people. Also, I think, when we do the winning way, it's not as HR people would call it. So you're not running it over a couple of weeks or months. It's transactional. You do an event and then you're out. But over the years, I've managed to build relationships with clients. So there were friends who became clients. There were clients who became friends. And you have to create occasions to keep in touch.
To the viewers, please wait on us, and there's been a technical issue. We'll be back. Yeah, their Wi-Fi. So that is it. The issue at their end? I am not able to see anybody.
It's Anita ma'am.
Okay. The dry run.
Hima, can you see me?
Yes.
So it's not at your end then. Yeah, I can't see them either. So we'll just wait for them to dial in again. If you have a number, maybe you could reach out to them.
Yeah.
My submission to all the participants. I'm monitoring the chat window, and I'm seeing some really good questions here. Please do go ahead and put in your questions. Hema will pick them up and ask them and weave them into the conversation as she goes along. So please do type in your questions into the chat window. Hema, were you able to reach them?
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
There they are.
Thank you. Much like the rain intermittent during a match, isn't it? So,
Rain has stopped match.
Actually, I have a point on that networking that you talked about. You know, from the time, say in my case, we were kids growing up in Hyderabad, we would say, "Chalo, yaar sab baith ke chai piyenge." Or after a game, we are playing something, or in college, we sit and chat. Doesn't matter if you miss a bus. Girls tended to go home straight first. Or everyone in the colony got together and sat under the tube light sitting and chatting, under the street light sitting and chatting. So it was almost accepted, assumed that from the time you're a kid, you'll be with your friends. And so you learn to network and learn that right from the time you're a child. Sometimes I think there's pressure on women to come, on girls to come back home straight.
There is, and I have experienced it firsthand. You know, when I was in advertising and I used to work 11 to 4, you know, the young little child used to be at home. And so, you know, you're very efficient in those 11 to 4 hours, but you want to run home. So there's no time for networking, and that is something I've learned the hard way. I am naturally an introvert. That also kind of doesn't help. But you, like I said, you've got to push yourself because networking is everything. People have to remember you, and you know when people say about the gig economy and that's going to be the future of work, then each person is going to be a brand. And it's very important that you find ways and means um, for people to remember you.
interesting that you spoke about gig economy because I want to touch that, and it was not really in our plan, but I'll bring it up. With this whole work from home scenario opening up, I think it opens out tremendous opportunities to all those men and women who want flexi jobs, either for parental care or child care or just their personal interest. Just from your perspective, and since you're also an entrepreneur, is gig economy finally in here? What are your thoughts about it? I mean, even from a sports angle, right? I mean, I think sports always was, in a way, a gig economy kind of a game, right? But what are your thoughts about it from a corporate angle as well?
It could go both ways. I mean, there are enough opportunities, but it is finally up to you what you make of the opportunity. So, yeah, I don't know how it will go. Maybe, people will not get trained at work. Maybe job security won't be there. That might make people a little insecure, a little more aggressive. And one would have to, combat all these things. You also need, in a gig economy, to learn to be able to work with people. And again, that networking, communication skills, all that will be required to really succeed in a gig economy.
Working with people is so important. No, I'm not sure people think enough about that, about the ability to work with people and to accept that you're moving from one team to another, and yet giving it all. That's something you learn from sport, actually, because you have to move from one team to the other, especially now in the T20 leagues. You learn to give 100% for those 2 months, then you go on somewhere else, you give 100% to that 1 month. And this is something I think that actually comes naturally to women, to multitask and give everything to one part, then give everything to the next job, then give everything to the next job. I think men tend to be a little unidimensional in that way. Very good at doing one thing, but get a little flustered when there's too many things. Certainly, it happens to us. She's better at multitasking. I get flustered when I've got too many things happening. So maybe that's a natural advantage that you can maybe cash in upon. I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm writing this book, Hema, on women professionals, and I've spoken to about 80 women in depth, and I've also spoken to experts. And there are differences in gender. And let me give you a little example that from our own lives. If there is an opportunity, I always weigh the opportunity and say, will I be able to do it? And, think about it. Am I sure? Harsha will say yes to the opportunity and then figure out how he's going to tackle it. And that I have observed over the years. Maybe that kind of behavior is going to be more important in the gig economy. And you've got to hit the ground running. You have no time to settle down. So it's going to be like T20. That you land and then you're going to be ready to bat. And it's going to be like projects. You know it better than I do. That's how it probably would be.
Very interesting perspective, Anita. I'll again go back to cricket. There are a lot of cricket questions, Harsha. So it's quite obvious. There's one from Soumya Narayanan, who says, we would like to know what are the key skills that's helped you be a successful commentator, other than just being good in English, right? And how much of homework do you actually do for your matches?
Thanks, Soumya. There's also a very interesting one we would like to take as we went along with. We've got our chat window open as well from Deepa. But to answer Soumya, yes, it does help. When you're in the broadcasting medium, you need to have two things going for you. One, you must have an idea of the subject that you are immersed in, and you must have the ability to communicate that. If you don't have both, then you struggle, but you're much better off having the ability and not being able to communicate than not having the ability and being in the communication industry, because then you get found out very quickly. So yes, that communication helped. But from the time I was 4 or 5, it was just in me. I just enjoyed watching cricket. When I was doing nothing, I was reading about cricket. I was asking questions about cricket. I played to school, college, university, senior division in Hyderabad. So I had little experience. I knew what it was to win and lose. I knew what it was to be surprised that a ball went to the boundary. I knew the surprise when a direct hit, when throw hit the stumps. So to that extent, I understood the experiences
and the emotion,
and largely the emotion. People don't understand. There's a lot of emotion to sport. Sport isn't about physics and technique and macho and being this guy. No, sport is a lot about emotion. I've cried in a dressing room because my team lost and my teammates didn't seem to feel the hurt as much as I did. So I understood the emotion around the sport as well, but also it was very, very important to understand your role. And I think that's true of all teams. What is my role in this broadcasting setup? What is the role of the camera person? What is the role of the director? What is the role of the expert? What is my role? And I think if you understand your role, then you give yourself the chance of becoming very good at it.
Fantastic. Your passion just comes through, Harsha. So again, Anita, back to you. What are the inputs for all those double income, families out here on how to maintain balance in family life? It's family, profession, children, and of course, parents and community and friends. Now, what are some tips there from you? And actually, this is blending into a question from Prabhu, who's asking us, how do you work in the same business and still maintain a healthy relationship? I think if we can join both these and probably talk a little snippets from your book as well.
So I think the first principle is that we are in one team and we don't compete with each other. Okay, so we are a team. When I guess then it's a matter of how partners work. So if one person is not feeling up to it, the other person kind of carries the load. And this has to happen at work as well as at home. At work, definitely it's happened. At home, things could have been, I think, a little better. His travel hasn't really helped. But that is the first principle. The other thing is, I think, like I said before, trust and respect for each other to work well together. Thirdly, to answer Prabhu's question, our roles, like he said, even in cricket, roles within a team are also important, and we are very clear about what he brings to the table and what I bring to the table. And if you feel that one person doesn't bring anything to the table, then it's not a team, and then it's not working. So I don't think I can do what he does, but somewhere he also feels that he can't do what I do, and which is about running the business and about working on content and building it consistently. He somehow switches off, whereas I'm a person who's managed to kind of and we run the series for almost 20 years now, and so that's also a challenge, because clients come to us repeatedly. We've done some 27, I think, for levers, and we've had most clients calling us back over the years. And that means that, you've got to give them something different each time, and you've got to stay relevant. because even the generation is changing now. Somebody just told us the other day that, I'm a second generation winning way, which meant, I said, what's a second generation winning way? She said, my father's attended your session and now I'm the workforce and I've attended your session.
It's a very subtle way of saying
So, yeah.
that you've grown older. But but Hema, it's also true what Anita talked about respect. I've got a lot of guys telling me this, not women, but guys telling me, how can you work together? Almost as if it's a challenge. But I think it boils down to those two words, respect and trust. That if you respect each other, so the winning way has grown on my knowledge of sport and on her knowledge of linking it to business, which is its raison d'etre, which is its existence. It exists because we are linking sport to business. And you've got to learn off each other, you've got to feed off each other. And after a while, people actually ask us, do you rehearse your talks? Because you're playing off each other very well. It only comes when you respect each other's skill. So we've never had an issue because there's always been respect. And as she said a little while back, you must know who is leading the business. And
somebody's asked actually, how do you settle a disagreement?
Yeah. So it had to be her because I was traveling around, so it had to be her leading the business. So should we do a session or no? The final call is always hers. What should the content be? It is hers. I mean, to be honest, to be very selfish, it helped me that was how it was. But it just helps that it's understood that way. And I think it's very important for children growing up to see that happening in a household, to see that there is respect amongst each other, and the mother's not someone who's just there and following something that someone else is doing.
You also asked about work-life balance. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you asked about work-life balance. Unfortunately, it's a question that is only asked of women. And whatever they might say about sharing the load, it's a very good thing that's happened, really, that I think men have started appreciating what it means to run a home and to be able to manage all these things just because of COVID now. But it's a great thing, and I hope that realization remains. But yeah, work-life balance. Somehow, I think now, unlike the time that we started, it's more integration than work-life balance. And I've always thought of life in phases. So when the kids were young, or now when the parents are old, there is a little more focus. You have to have more time for them. And so, it could be a 60-40 or a 70-30 or something like that. And, there are other times like, now our boys are grown up and I've worked harder than I've ever worked, I think, in the last decade, because then you're done with responsibilities and you can, focus on things. You can take on new things, like I started Biz Pundits in 2011. So you can do things. So everything is phase. It's a phase, and some phases this is more important, and some phases that is more important.
So it's like playing a long innings. Sometimes you have to defend it, sometimes you seize the opportunity and score runs.
Yeah. And sometimes one player is in the zone, right? And you just allow that player to play the game. So it's wonderfully put. So, Anita, you've been, patronizing IWN and really helping us, early this year, you visited us at Cochin and you had a great session with us and you accepted this. What should, a organization like Indian Women Network, which has the foundation, which is fairly strong, what are some of the areas where you think we can best play our game? What some of the best offerings that we can work towards? Just from your experience through running winning ways, being an entrepreneur, any thoughts about that for us?
I think as an organization, you can help create infrastructure, influence policy, and things like that, because support systems are extremely important. So that is definitely one area. The second, I think, is to encourage young women to believe in themselves, to hang in, give them the confidence that, tough times just come and go, but you can't chuck your career. Push for more leadership, encourage women leaders to, help the sisterhood and not compete amongst themselves or try to remain the divas. Things like that, I think, can be worked towards.
I think hanging there is a big one. Hang in there. Don't take the option looking at the first possible opportunity. I mean, sometimes things are not in your hands.
See, the
But
sports analogy always works.
hang in there. Hang in there. The bowler who's hurting you might get tired, and then an easier bowler comes and you can score off him.
Awesome. Very nice. I must ask this question because I'm sure it's on top of everybody's mind. Dhoni is on top of everybody's mind with all his the recent retirement announcement. And there's often a comparison to his leadership style with that of Virat Kohli. So the question, if I don't ask this, I might even as well lose my job in my office. So I have to ask you this. It may be interesting to hear your views on the differences in leadership styles between Virat Kohli and Dhoni. And do you tend to draw parallels between their styles with the corporate world? What are your thoughts about it?
Why didn't you consider the option of telling all these people who asked you to ask this question? This is a for women by women session, and I will ask what I want to ask. So if it comes up, it comes up. But different leadership styles. One is very quiet, always seems to be in control. You have no idea watching him what the state of the game is. The other person wears his heart on his sleeve, and sometimes being emotional is good because it G's up the side, but sometimes being emotional is a little worrisome for the side, saying, oh my God, the captain's so emotional, does he know what's coming next? So I think it depends on the person that you are, but I think I prefer to see calmer people, and I actually think Kohli is getting there. There's a huge difference in his life since Anushka came in too. So, and it's good to see that he's acknowledging that at every forum. He's changing as a person as well. So, but I think one is a calm leader. When you're calm, your mind works much more. When you're an agitated person, or unless Virat's agitated look is a put on and that inside he's calm, but they're two very different kinds of people. If you, as a leader, play a certain way, you sometimes tend to assume that everyone can play that way. Virat's style is a confrontational style, but he loves the confrontation. Not everyone else can. So sometimes you've got to understand what works for other people. But as long as it's working for the team, then either style is all right.
It works for the game at the end of the day. That's what you're saying.
It has to work. It has to work for the team in terms of the result that the team achieves. That is primary.
Superb, superb. So, this is a question which is one of my favorite also, as I told, through my whole experience with both of you, you come across absolutely unassuming and down to earth. What is it that's keeping you both authentic? There must be a lot of star buzz around you and a lot of the celebrity buzz around you. How do you keep that away and keep yourself undistracted and very authentic to both yourself?
I think one of the most powerful but underrated words, and one that both of us feel strongly about, is gratitude. And I think if you're grateful for what comes your way, you stay grounded, because it could easily not have come your way. And I find that being grateful is actually quite powerful, because it keeps, and when you're grounded, you can reach for the stars. If your feet leave the ground, then you have literally nowhere to stand. But I find things like humility, gratitude. I was very lucky in that when I went to management school, I was in awe of the people around me. When I was in a cricket team, I was not always the best player in the team, so I was always surrounded by people who were better than me. In many ways, if you're going to look the other way, that's happened in our marriage too. So to that extent, there's a lot to be grateful for. And I think if you're grateful for what comes your way, then you realize that you're just another person. So my skill is no different from yours in running an organization. My skill is no different from the fruit seller who's doing a very good job selling fruits. We've all got our skill. There's no one skill that is superior to another.
And we make it a point to stay in touch with all our batchmates, because that's the only way you can remain grounded, authentic, because they know you from the time you were a nobody. They are people you really don't need to posture to. And all of them are achievers in their own way. And that keeps you grounded because, like he said, everybody is an achiever in their own field. And so, what's so great about you? So that makes us grounded. And our parents really taught us middle class values, and we've tried to do that with our children as well. So I didn't know it was supposed to be a qualification, but somebody asked me the other day whether our children travel by public transport, and I said, of course they do. I mean, they've gone abroad and come, and nobody's going to give them a car and a driver over there. So they have to use public transport, even here, and they too are very grounded. So we kept our needs, small. We haven't really changed our lifestyle much. I still go out and buy vegetables. I still cook for the family. And there's really no reason to change that much because I think we are professionals.
Yeah, sometimes,
Even
yeah.
he has positioned himself as a professional, not as a star or a celebrity.
Sometimes words like humility, authentic, these are seen to be badges of honor, but they shouldn't be. They should just be who you are, right? So sometimes you say, what a modest person. Oh, what a humble person. As if you won a war and come back. It's a badge of honor. No, it's not a badge of honor. It's just the way everyone should be.
So well said. So if you were to turn the clock backwards, are there things that you would change from the way you look at it from now?
I think she has more to.
No, I wouldn't want to really change anything because I thought about it a few times and what could I have changed? I don't think I could have really changed anything, though I always wish that I was born maybe 2 or 3 decades later. Because so when I see opportunity, so much opportunity to do things, and how there's a lot more support for women from their families. It's not like our parents were not supportive, but they weren't really ambitious. If you managed to do something, that was great. If you didn't do, that was also okay. But now it's different. I think even parents are more ambitious. The girls themselves are ambitious, and it's nice. We don't have a daughter, unfortunately. I would have had to love to have one and give her whatever I didn't have. But nothing different. The only regret I have when I look back now is, my first boss used to play the sitar, and music is becoming more and more important in my life. Uh, and he offered to teach me the sitar, and I was like 24, and I didn't take him up on the offer. And he lived pretty close by, things were manageable. When you are young, you think you have all the time in the world. And then, kids happen. I mean, it was early in our married days, and then the kids happened, career happened, and somehow that got left behind. So if there are things that young girls want to do, please do it now. Because before you know it, you become old and you have many more responsibilities. That's the only thing I feel.
Yeah, the
I'll
one,
be
one
sure to
thing.
tell that to my daughter.
Yeah.
And, just to give you some, I certainly want to hear about your next book and your next project, Anita. And I think, I've really enjoyed this evening here with you, but I'd like to, hear about your book and know a little more about it.
Yeah, so the book really is, the starting point was that we used to do the winning way, women used to come up to me and say, have you done anything specifically for women? And that kind of thought stayed with me, but I've been too busy to kind of do anything about it. And then, of course, all this talk about, a few women leaders and things like that. So I started thinking about it. And then I wondered, whether the problem was with the women or whether it was with the organization, whether the challenge was at home, whether it was in the office, you know. And then I realized that, yeah, maybe, women are wired also a little bit differently. And if you look at it, the choices that women make, and there are so many choices one has to make, who you marry. Look at my case. Who I married changed my life. I mean, if I'd married somebody else, my life could have been completely different.
Mine too.
Whether in another way, but my career could have been very different. Whether to have children or not, whether you want to travel with your husband when he gets transferred. Unfortunately, the trailing spouse is always a woman, not so much a man. all these kind of choices, how long, is your maternity leave, how you handle it, and, what you want to do with your career. The choices influence the career a lot more than they would for a man. And that is something that I've kind of, tried to explore with women who have managed to do something in their careers, some who kind of miss the bus a little bit and then, think about how they could have done it differently. So lots of things on how to manage a career, how to manage yourself, how to manage work-life balance, and a lot of things. And I hope it turns out good, and I hope it benefits young people, young women. Yeah.
We absolutely look forward to seeing the book, and hopefully IWN will be a platform where we can really talk about it and have a book reading session, perhaps, in the nearest future. Wishing you all the very best. And, we are at 6:06. We wanted this to be an hour-long interaction. If there are any particular questions from the panelists, you may please ask. Otherwise, over to Shalini for the final wrap-up.
Hi. Thank you very much, Harsha and Anita. That was a fantastic session. I didn't realize 1 hour had gone by. I'm sure there were enough and more questions to do more justice to it. We'll probably bring you back after this whole IPL is over, when you come back to the country and have more time. But a few things that I took out from it, I'm sure everybody's had some takeout, but I just thought it would be, kind of appropriate for me to give you what I thought I took out from it. I think the whole aspect which you spoke about being passionate about what you do, and that comes through very clearly in your conversations, in what you're saying, etc. And so that resonated very strongly with me. And I think it's a strong message for all of us, not just me, but all the attendees, that, the passion you bring, whether you're selling fruits on the, in the grocery shop, or you're doing something else, to be passionate about it. Seizing opportunities, I think you spoke about that a couple of times actually through the session. Say yes, and then think about it after that on how you could prepare yourself for it, rather than, weighing the pros and cons and, ultimately not saying yes. So I think looking for opportunities. I think, Anita, you spent a considerable time on networking, something that I recognize is a gap in a lot of us women. We just don't do enough of it. We don't step out of our comfort zone to look for opportunities to network with people. You spoke about work-life integration, which is so apt and appropriate, particularly during these days when there's so much of work-life work from home happening. So moving away from work-life balance to work-life integration. So it's, at some points in time, yes, work is more important. At some points of time, it is the home that's important. And I think all of us need to be able to kind of balance that and have an integrated approach to it. Where you kind of ended towards the end, the whole authenticity piece and the badges of honor. I love the point you made, Harsha, that, gratitude, humility are so important, but these are not badges of honors. It's not like Paramveer Chakra or, a Dronacharya Award or the equivalent in sports that are there, the Khel Ratna. But I think these are very authentic attributes that keep you grounded and keep, something that we should, be looking for. So I think that I've enjoyed every minute of the last hour or so. I've had the fortune, Anita, of kind of moderating and hosting your session when you were in Kochi. So this kind of leads from there. And I'm looking forward to your book. We'll have you back, as Hema said, for a reading session where, the women will really enjoy and think. And, the audience consists of both, I looked up some statistics, but I think we have a preponderance of both male and female in the audience. So it's not just female. I think the messages you gave are equally applicable, irrespective of gender, irrespective of profession, irrespective of whether you're an entrepreneur or a corporate. We have a mix of all of them. So thank you very much. Thanks really for taking time off on a busy evening, I'm sure. Especially, yeah, I'm sure you guys are getting ready for IPL and, other stuff that is happening. So thank you very much for taking time off. Shows the commitment that you have to the cause of women, that you took time off to come in for this session. So thank you very much. And we really look forward to having you back again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Had a good time.
Hema, thank you very
Harsha
much.
and
Very well
Anita.
moderated, Hema. Thank you very much. And
Thank you,
CII
Shani.
Secretariat, to the panelists and to the participants. Thank you very much, everyone.
So Hema's made a lot of effort to make it different and interesting. And thank you, Hema.
Thank you. Thank you.
Enjoyed
Harsha.
talking to you.
All the best. We'll be watching IPL. We'll root
We
for
look
the
forward to
teams.
hearing you, Harsha. Yeah.
Yes,
Harsha
thank
and
you.
Thank you,
Anita,
sir.
thank you very much for being here. My only regret is that we are unable to give you a standing ovation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hema.
Thank you.